You're listening to Visibility Vixen, Episode 8.
The minute we open our eyes and choose to see our life from our love, from our value, and our encouragement, our life will transform.
Welcome to the Visibility Vixen podcast, where we create space to grow our brand with intention and clarity, one episode at a time. Join us as we explore the many aspects of entrepreneurship, start loving the journey instead of the destination, and begin building a legacy that lasts. Here's your host, Michelle Lewis.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Ladypreneur Legacy. We are talking to a dear friend of mine named Dr. Steve Ward. So, Steve, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great being on your show today, Michelle.
Thanks, Steve. Steve and I go way back, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. I'm going to give you a little introduction to who he is and what he does, because I think this show is going to be absolutely revolutionary for you. So here we go. Born 2.5 months early, Dr. Steve was diagnosed at age 5 with Hong Kong flu and was placed in a full body cast for 8 months. But he healed himself, and his own health challenges motivated him to help others with exhaustion, acute and chronic pain, and disability through chiropractic care. He uses craniosacral therapy and standing or sitting wall adjustment techniques to help improve symptoms like headaches, neck pain, shoulder blade pain, lower back pain, and pain in the arms and legs. He also specializes in mental emotional stress interpretation, considering the cranium, spinal column, and pelvis as a single intact unit. And through analyzing the spine, he can scientifically measure abnormal stress points, physical dis-ease, mental health patterns, and predict what specific damage it has caused or will cause if not corrected. Dr. Steve understands why you're experiencing the pain and how to treat it for complete healing. So that's an amazing resume, Steve, and I'd love for you to say in your words exactly what it is that you do.
Yes. Well, what I do is I look at the body and I look at people in two positions of load, when they stand and when they sit. I look at them from the front and side, so I'm studying their posture. Over the years, I have been able to just look at posture and interpret what was going on within a person's life. But that was really based on my dad's work, where he was studying full spine x-rays, so x-rays that were 14 by 36 inches long, and he was studying curvature of the spine and how curvature of the spine changed relative to different disease processes, both mentally and physically. So we started to realize, or he started to realize early on in his career in the early 60s, that disease shows up in a pattern. And if we take a full spine x-ray, we can study that curvature and get to clear insight as to what is the underlying factors that may be causing the disease process. And once corrected, how we can quickly help to transform someone's health and life, no matter how severe their problem may be.
That's so amazing. I was actually referred to Dr. Steve because I had, as most of us know, acute migraines 24/7 that would not go away. So using me as the guinea pig, Steve, let's talk about when you and I first met and I came down to your office in Long Beach and you saw me come in the room. What did you observe and what did you see as my main root issue?
Well, I noticed that you were in a left shoulder drop, which is very common for a left spinal curve, which is very common for a firstborn female. And since you're an only child, you're a firstborn female. And so it just means, just in that one curve, that your pattern was seeking outside male parent approval. And so it gave us insight as to who you had bonded with. Because when we study behavior, what we must understand is that behavior is never current generation. There can be current issues in our current life, but our behavioral patterns that we're coming from in our life today are oftentimes behavioral patterns that people before us came from. So I could see your pattern immediately, and I could see that you were demanding and on yourself, and that you set really high standards, because if you recall, you had a very severe right shoulder problem. And the right shoulder problem was about high standards and about expectation. And then when we were able to get your x-ray analysis and document these postural issues, then we were beginning to give you clarity as to how you bonded with your father and how you bonded with his issues of inadequacy, and how someone set super high standards for him, and no matter what he attained, it was never enough to give him validation. And then that message gets passed down to you, and then early on in your life, the issue would have been the difficulty in even asking for what you need, because many times firstborn females will expect someone knows what they need, but they won't ask for what they need. And so, of course, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
So it was really important for you to understand that, one, you had bonded with the pattern of behavior. You had actually been seeing your life through the experience of your father and his super high standards, which are extremely high even today, as are yours. But the difference today is you can realize that all you can do in life is give your best to what you're doing. And once you give your best, you validate that. And how does that sound? I gave my best. My best is good enough for me. We need to focus our energy back on ourselves and not on someone else's validation or approval, because in many cases, the people we seek approval from, the people we want to be validated from, have never self-validated, they've never self-approved, they've never self-loved, and therefore it's very difficult for them to transfer that to other people when they haven't experienced those qualities.
Absolutely. Well, I think before we dive into expectation, I'd love to talk about just a couple different common issues so people can kind of wrap their mind around, I might be having this physical problem, but it actually means this. So let's start with headaches. What are headache patterns usually a sign of?
Headache patterns are a sign of mental punishment. So they really get into hypercriticism, when people are too hard on self, when people are putting too much expectation on self. See, if I set a high expectation and I set it so high it's unattainable, then what I'm left with is a feeling of inadequacy. At that point, that triggers my self-criticism, and then I begin to self-annihilate. And that's really the origin of headaches, is mental punishment. And so the origin of them multi-generationally are really relative to people who were criticized and then who then transferred criticism generationally. So if I'm critical of me because someone was critical of me, then I then become critical of you. But what you should say is, oh, Dr. Steve, you're critical of self, so that's not about me, see? So it's really important on headaches to understand that we need to be better at validating and encouraging, and certainly better at loving self, and not just loving self when we attain what we feel we should attain to be enough.
Gotcha. I think that's really, really wise. Okay, how about left-sided pain? What does that usually indicate?
Well, left-sided pain is going to be male dysfunction. And so, for instance, a lot of women today have left-sided problems because what they do is they seek their father's approval and didn't receive it. And then they thought that they didn't receive it because they had not done enough. So then they thought, oh, if I do a lot, then I'll get approval. And so they overdo and they overpush and they push through pain and they push through fatigue and they keep going no matter what. And in those situations, oftentimes the ladies will have left-sided pain. And left-sided pain in a female really deals with denial. It deals with how they are expressing the hurt they feel. When women are in left-sided pain, they're not expressing their hurt. They're internalizing their hurt. They're processing their hurt. They're rationalizing their hurt, and then they're withdrawing and denying it. And so consequently, they then will have left-sided pain patterns. Now, it's a side note, a lot of women who are left in curve also struggle with fibromyalgia, because fibro and chronic fatigue is about women who are over-pushing, overdoing, pushing through fatigue, putting so much expectation on themselves that their body is struggling to meet that demand. So left-sided pain, it really has, you can look at it so many different ways, because if it's a left upper pain and it's on a female, then she's having male relationship dysfunction. So say it's in the shoulder blade, meaning she's seeking approval from this male, and this male never receives it, so doesn't give it. And then the male is going to be opposite in curve. Instead of being left curve, that male will be right curve, and what that male wants is to be validated. And if that male is validated, then he will give encouragement and approval to the female. But if that male is criticized, they won't do anything. It's very interesting. But so depending upon where the pain pattern is, there will be a specific psychological issue. And oftentimes, too, left side just gets into stress that's outside of self. So when there's load outside of us, that's not even our stress, but we pick it up as if it is our stress.
Wow. It's just amazing.
So there's so many, that's a deep question. Yeah. And I don't know if I answered it that well. But it's so important to understand, like left lower back gets into male relationship hurt. Left upper back is really getting into how a female might feel inadequate if she's not a male. That would produce a left upper back problem. Or it could be in a female that she's attracted a male to her life that doesn't meet her needs. She's pulling into her life a male that's injured because that person has been injured by their father.
That sounds like all of my past boyfriends.
Yes. And then, of course, you see the absence of the father in the past boyfriend, and then you see the dominant mothers in their reality, and how those dominant mothers that struggle with you. Because the dominant female looks for male approval, not female approval. And if you're a female seeking approval from a dominant female, they're not going to give it.
Right.
They're going to withhold it.
Wow, so true.
Sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying it's so important to understand these family dynamics, because instead of going through our life thinking we're inadequate because we're not enough for this person in our family, we should change that. We should realize that the person in our family that we're seeking something from probably has never mastered it, so cannot give it, and it's our fantasy that thinks that we'll get it.
Yes. Well, and I think that's really the gift in what you do, is you've really helped me and my mom and my dad and my husband open our eyes to all of the different stress, pressure, expectation we were putting on ourselves that wasn't really even our issue to begin with.
Right. We put it on ourselves, but it's been put on you before you put it on you. Meaning, as a little girl, you're working through all these psychogenetic issues as if they're your issues. But in truth, you bonded with them and you're seeing your life through the eyes of someone else's experience. So that we instruct you to take off your glasses that you're seeing your life through and sit them down, choose to see your life through your own loving eyes, not somebody else's fear-based projection, which would be judgment, blame, shame, guilt, criticism, resentment, or anger. So when someone's coming from fear, I'm going to block them. I'm going to deny them. I'm not going to personalize them, and that's where we make our mistake. We say, oh, so-and-so was critical of me. Now I'm hurt by it. I say, oh, so-and-so who is critical of me has someone who is critical of them, and they don't know how not to be critical. And if I remove me, they're still critical. So that tells me that their criticism is multi-generational, not about me. And so I'll shake it off rather than personalize it and lose my identity to it.
So hopefully you are listening. If you've kind of zoned out, tune back in, because this is huge stuff. What Steve is saying is that we all come into our lives with generational issues. And so it's important to realize that fact, to take a step back from that, and to pretty much clear our slate, wipe it clean, and redesign how we feel and how we think about ourselves. And I think that's a perfect segue, Steve, for us to talk about what most ladypreneurs really struggle with, and that is expectation. So can you talk about what exactly expectations are and why they can be so damaging?
Sure. An expectation is something that has not been fulfilled. That's number one. The problem with expectation is when we hear it as a child from a parent, we hear it as an expectation, but I'm going to back up for a second. What we commonly hear as a child is, if you do it right. And then we think that when we do it right, we're going to get validated. And then we give our best, and then we look for that parental validation, and it doesn't come, and then what do we think? We haven't done enough. If we do more, we'll get that validation we need. And what happens is, we get no closer to getting that validation by doing more. So what our parents really should have said, instead of saying, if you do it, Michelle, do it right, I would have said, well, you know, Michelle, I was taught as a child that if I do something, to do it right. And what I did as a child is I put out a great effort. I always gave my best. I got good grades and different things. And then I would come to my parent and I'd say, look at what I've done. And they'd say, that's good, Michelle, but you can do it better. And so what that did is that sets in motion a feeling of inadequacy profile. But if we communicate it correctly, we just say to that child, I was taught if you do it, to do it right. But what I learned is when I did it right, I didn't get validated. So what I realized is I seeked approval from someone who couldn't give it. And so now what I realize is I look at my intention, and my intention is I give my best, and then I stay out of outcome, meaning I don't look to say, okay, I gave my best. Is my best good enough for this person outside of me? That is a problem. We need to give our best, know that's good enough for self, and be happy with that, and stay out of looking for something from someone who's never mastered it and cannot give it because they don't even know how to give it. And then we have this expectation of our parent. We say, oh, our parents should be healthy and should know how to be healthy. And that's not true. Our parent knows how to transfer what they've experienced. And if we don't help them to shift that, see, we can help our parents by understanding this. So instead of personalizing a dysfunction from a parent, I see it with empathy. I see it with kindness. I'm like, oh, I feel for you because you were injured. And out of that injury, you now do this. And now I know you do that, so I'm going to defend against that, and I'm not going to take that personal. So that's where we talk about the spiritual law of non-resistance, and that is such a powerful law. And it means the only time something has weight is when you give weight to it. So if I'm critical of you, Michelle, and then you then take my criticism of you, and then you go home and you self-annihilate because I was critical of you. See how that works? That's a projection of a multi-generational pattern. So it's super important that we look at those things, that we look at fear-based mechanisms, and that we realize that we are not in our power when we're judging ourselves. We're not in our greatness when we're criticizing ourselves, when we're abandoning ourselves, when we're setting an unreal expectation that there's, and you have that habit. oh my God.
Yes, I do.
You are like the expectation queen of queens. However,
releasing.
you have worked on this, and great transformation has taken place, as you know. But it's taking you time because it's a program, and it's a hard program to shift. It takes consistency, right?
Yes. It's a daily ritual in a way, because you really have to. When we met, I was a stand-in in television, but I wasn't able to work in it consistently because my pain level was so high. We did a lot of this work. It kind of opened me up once I shed all of these generational issues and expectation to go, oh, I want to leave my job and start being an entrepreneur and have an online business, which was such a wonderful shift for me. But then this whole nother slew of issues happen because you're really having to be true in your identity, true in yourself, reaching out, putting yourself out there. And so I had all these new things, all these new expectations laid on me that you've really been coaching me to let go of, because all it does is hinder us.
Right. And I would just say one thing to you. And this is the one thing I'd say to you. If you've never accomplished anything from this moment forward in your life, you've already been abundantly successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so important to build on your greatness, not negate your greatness.
I'm letting that sink in.
When you realize that you're a person that has worked super hard, that puts out the effort and energy, that it's going to put out that effort and energy no matter what. And so whenever you're done with that, that's enough. Right there, you've done enough.
Yes.
And that's what I need people to really work on is understand that the more you do doesn't mean the greater you are. When you start with greatness and you add greatness, you have greatness.
Mm-hmm.
You're not more great. You're just great.
Well, you told me this last week. You told me about, I was having, I think it was a little bit of left shoulder pain, and you said, well, you're so great at achieving and doing new stuff, but once you do that, which is more, the analytical mind is more the male side, are you stepping outside of it, letting it go, and then enjoying the female side, relaxing, doing something a little bit more, in the feminine energy, and I wasn't doing that.
Right, because that's, it's easier for you to operate in that heavy logic because that's where your pattern is.
Mm-hmm.
And that logic says, oh, you need to do more, not less.
Yeah, so just one more thing.
That's what the program's always saying, do more, do more, do more, do more, do more. Well, if you're always doing more and you're not celebrating what you are and what you have accomplished and done, then you're in a misdirection.
Mm-hmm.
And we need people to understand that when we do more, we get more tired. We don't get more love. We don't get more validation. We don't get more encouragement. We don't get more approval. We get more fatigue. We get more pain when we do more. So it is a fine line. That's where I say to people, in everything you do, look for ways to save energy. In everything you do, look for ways to save energy. And you and I have already talked about several in this short program.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about if you're in expectation, and if your expectation is so high that you never fulfill it, then you're going to feel inadequate. So if you take expectation out and you just give your best, focus in on your intention, which is where your heart is and what your desire is. And your desire is to be great, and your desire is to do great things, and your desire is to impact the world, and you're doing all those things. But you can do all those things while saving energy, and that's way more powerful than, pushing yourself so hard so when you finally are at a point where you arrived, you're fully exhausted, you can't enjoy it.
Yes. Well, and I feel that ladypreneurs really struggle with that because we have these big goals like launching a group program or doing an online course, and they seem so unattainable because there's so many steps to get there that people either give up or they get into a huge pain pattern and in high stress. So how can we...
Yeah, and I think more likely people are going to, with that pattern, go into physical problems.
Yes.
Because we can't, we're not, like, you're a superwoman, but you're not superwoman.
Mm-mm.
So there's a good distinction here. You are an amazing woman. You're gifted. God gifted you. God blessed you with greatness. But everything you do requires energy. Whereas if you were superwoman, you could just fly from, Burbank to Long Beach in 5 seconds and get your treatment. Well, that's not how the world works. So we need to help these female entrepreneurs understand that achieving is great, but if you're not enough without your achievement, when you attain it, you're not going to be enough either.
Yes.
So really, we should coach people to be enough without, because if they're enough without, they're enough with.
I think that's such a good point. And for those of you listening, a great way to do that is to list your gratitudes. Look at what you have in your life that you're so grateful for and what you love about yourself with who you are right now. Not when your list gets to 10,000 people, not when you launch that program, because if you don't accept yourself, love yourself, and celebrate your wins now, even when you attain what is that seemingly unattainable goal, you're going to have the same set of issues because you'll have a whole new goal and you won't have taken any time to celebrate yourself. So really dig into what you love and what you celebrate about yourself every day, and set your goals. Have your big goal, then break it down into small actionable ones. And when you accomplish that small actionable goal, step back, be happy about it, celebrate it, and then give yourself some rest.
Wow. I couldn't have said that any better. You're truly brilliant.
Well, you have taught me well, Steve. So I also want to talk about just a little bit, because you are so good with your words. You've really studied words, the energetic impact that they have, and you're constantly correcting my language, which I absolutely love because you've helped me retrain myself. So what are some healthy daily affirmations that we should be practicing?
Well, we first should start with understanding what our deep-rooted purpose is. And people who have father abandonment, if you ask them what their purpose is, they'll always tell you the same thing: they don't know. Well, that's a problem, because that's like a ship at sea without a rudder. So you're always going, but you don't have power over where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
So, number one, we need to have a deep-rooted purpose. And the very best purpose is a purpose in love. So we should start each day with a choice to love self. We should end each day with a choice to love self. So when you wake up and you're half asleep and you walk into the bathroom and your hair is all over the place, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you look at that person you see and you say, I choose to love myself today. And that means I love myself if I'm in pain. I love myself if I'm in exhaustion. I love myself if someone's critical. I love myself if someone's abandoning. My love for me does not change. That's what neutral, healthy love is all about. So affirmation: I choose to love self. I choose to value self. I choose to encourage self. I choose to approve of self. I choose to be thankful for the gift. I choose to love the wonderful, if I'm a female, woman I was created to be. If I'm a male, I choose to love the male I was created to be, because so many men today are operating in their female, and so many women today are operating in their male. And then they're not embedding love to their gender, and that's where so many gender cancers are coming from. When we see a breast cancer, we see a uterine cancer, a cervical cancer, a prostate cancer, a testicular cancer. They're always going to be connected to gender issues. Breast cancer and uterine cancer happens in situations where parents want boys and get girls. But then they're even added, if your parent's parent wanted a boy and got a girl, then that girl's going to be dominant. Then that dominant mother's going to withhold love, and then that daughter's going to be dominant. See how that works? So you can go all day with words, but we want people to understand that every word has intention. So we don't want to be loose with our tongue. We don't want to just vomit out words. We want to realize that the words we choose dictate the life we live. And if we're not enjoying our life the way our life is, then we must change our words so that we can begin to enjoy our life. And how would that sound? I choose to be joyful today. That's the second fruit of the Spirit, powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Are you claiming it? Are you claiming your love? When was the last time you told yourself you love yourself? Do you tell yourself you love yourself outwardly? Do you do it multiple times a day? Not once a day, not once in the morning, not once in the evening. Every time someone's critical, I'm silently telling myself I love myself. I'm negating their intensity rather than carrying their load. So just understand that words are powerful. And if you're having health issues, then you want to use words. Someone will say, how are you doing today? And a lot of people, I'm not good, or I feel sick, or I'm depressed, or I'm blah, 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 or my fibromyalgia is killing me, or my arthritis is killing me. Those words will not help you. So what I'd recommend if you're having health issues is you say something as simple as this. Well, every day I'm getting healthier and healthier. I'm healing in every cell in my being. My whole body I'm releasing the dysfunction in my body that was never mine to burden. And I'm replacing it with my light and my love, my joy, my peace, my patience, my kindness, my goodness, my gentleness, and my deep faith that my life is great the minute I choose to see it as a great life.
Well, that is just mind-blowing. And I'm sure people listening are just going, oh my gosh, I feel my brain buzzing. And that's good. That means you're in the frontal lobe. And that's where creativity happens. And you have to remember that these exercises, they're so easy to do when you're feeling good and you're in a good place and you're having a good day. But the work needs to come in when you're in issue, when you're in struggle, when you're in pain. So like today, I did a couple podcasts and my migraine started spiking. And so I was able to go, okay, something's coming up. I need to release something and I need to affirm self. So these are practices that continue to happen throughout your life because we constantly have to pay attention to our language and whether or not we're putting expectation on ourselves.
Right. And again, that means we must slow it down because a lot of times our logic is going so fast and then all these words are coming out that are not serving us, that are not strengthening us, that are not helping us evolve. And evolving is all about seeing ourselves as the person that was, from my point of view, we were created in God's image and likeness. The Creator did a great job on us. We shouldn't go through our life treating the Creator as if He did a bad job, treating the Creator as if we got to fix everything He did. What we should be doing is saying, God's created greatness in me. Now I can recognize the greatness in me, and that allows me to save energy. That allows me to not put unreal expectation on myself. I need to realize I'm already enough. I'm enough before I begin. Before you did your podcast, you were enough. Mm-hmm. And once you did your podcast, you were enough. And when you did the second one, you were enough. When you do the third one, you're enough. And so, but now it's about doing those things and saving energy when you do it. Means just effortless. Like yesterday, I treated like 43 people. I treated all those people in that suite, all those guys. Mm-hmm. I treated 25 people in 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And because all I did is little wall adjustments on them. I didn't do full treatment. But these lives all were transformed in minutes. This is not hard. Transforming a life is not hard. Our programming makes it hard. We say, that's going to be hard. And the minute we say that's going to be hard, what is it? It's hard.
Of course. Wow.
So, and then I say, my programming, and the truth is, it's not my program. It's just programming that's happened multi-generationally The Bible talks about it coming in from 5 to 7 generations back. So that means how people lived 7 generations ago have an impact on how we're living today. And our job is to let go of that inheritance, to choose to allow those dysfunctions that didn't originate in us to be freed and released, and to be released in love, not in judgment, not in fear. See, I release in love, because when we release in love, we let go of the intensity of that dysfunction. But if we say, oh, I'm going to get rid of it, like people use that word, I'll get rid of whatever, my weight. Well, what is that saying? That says you got to kill off part of you in order to be enough. Is that healthy? No. Is it going to make you happy? No. No, if you have a weight issue, then you better love yourself at your heaviest if you want to love yourself at your lightest. And if you don't love yourself at your heaviest, when you lose the weight, you won't love yourself then either.
It's so true.
It's very important to slow it down, to take it easy, to realize that our words are our wand and they dictate our life. And if we're not happy in the direction of our life, then the way out of that is changing the words. And that's why we communicate it as if we haven't even received it. What you want, you communicate as if you've already received it, I should say. So if I want to make more money, I'm thankful for that abundance that I've already received. See what I mean? So we really need to work to reprogram our thoughts, to choose really strong words, to we need to really get people focused in on love intention and on love command. And think about this if you're a parent. If you really want to help your child, think about this. You know, I could teach my child to set real high expectations, but I could also teach my child a lot this way. What happens if I'm having a bad day? Say I'm having the worst day of my year, and I want to make an impact on my child. How do I do that? Well, Daddy or Mommy or whoever is having a terribly difficult day. But in the middle of my greatest challenge today, I realize the importance of loving myself. See, because if kids hear that we love ourselves in challenge, they begin to do that. Instead of just loving when things are great, as you said earlier. We need to love when things are not great, and we need to love when things are great. Both are vital.
I totally agree. And can you imagine the power of, encouraging your child where they're not taking things personally, where they're not operating out of expectation, where they're loving themselves no matter what's happening? Oh my goodness. They wouldn't have to spend all this time releasing generational issue. They can just, climb into the person God created them to be and embrace it and just be abundant. I think that's amazing. I can't wait to create that with my children, thanks to your teaching.
Well, and changing this is not hard. It's really not. Genetic passing are hard when we're unaware of them. So once we become aware of them, they're not hard to change. It's just an issue of letting go. That's not mine. Hey, were you the first perfectionist in your family? No. Right? Were you the first person to internalize your hurt in your family? No. Were you the first person to over process a hurt and play it over and over in your head? No. Were you the first to withdraw from it? No. Were you the first to be driven? No. Were you the first to overpush and push through fatigue? No. So we must look and understand that most of the ways that these key behaviors that are impacting our life are not ours. So don't carry them as if they are yours. Let them go so that you can identify yourself from a place of love and value, from a place of encouragement and gratitude, as you said earlier, and appreciate the gift of your creation, because you are a glorious, amazing gift.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that you have just been awestruck by this podcast today. I encourage you for your action steps to re-listen to this, especially if you're struggling. And I also encourage you to find a loved one, whether that's a boyfriend, a spouse, a parent, a friend. Have someone else listen to this too, because it's so important to have that loving accountability where if you are speaking in hurtful language, that they can say, hey, that's not loving to you, and they can help you get out of these patterns and release the baggage that wasn't even ours to begin with. So Steve,
Right.
I am so appreciative of you coming and sharing your wisdom. I'm sure we're going to have you on a bunch more, but is there anything any final thoughts that you'd like to give our listeners before we end our time today?
Well, I think it's important with women entrepreneurs that they realize they may be in a gender issue, and in those gender issues they may be over pushing. And so because they're pushing, because they're seeking, say, their father's approval they didn't receive. So it's an unconscious thing, and they're thinking the more they do, the more likely they'll be enough. And they really need to learn to take a step back, see the picture from an observer. See, that's powerful. When I can step outside of me and see my patterns of behavior, where they came from, and make a choice. Am I going to duplicate that and just do the same thing all the generations prior to me have done? Or am I going to release the chain that has, bound by family dynamics? And how do I release that? I choose my words differently. I validate myself daily. I love myself many, many times a day. 100 times a day, I've probably expressed a love command. I do not let anybody who comes from fear take my greatness. That's their issue, not my issue. Their fear is theirs. My job is to help shift that. Their job is to shift from that. Mm-hmm. And when they do, they're like, Dr. Steve, you're the greatest doctor I've ever known. And I'm like, no, you're the greatest doctor you ever known. I don't need that. We all need to understand that the power is in us to transform our life. The minute we open our eyes and choose to see our life from our love, from our value and our encouragement, our life will transform. And so I thank you so much today, Meech, for calling me up and getting me talking a little bit and helping. Hopefully this will help some other people begin to understand some of this so that their life can be the truly blessed life that we are gifted to live. And that's what I want for everyone that I ever work with. It's just that hope that they have a new vision so they can see their life differently, so they can enjoy the life they're living instead of get to the end and not see any of the greatness of their life.
Well, those are beautiful words, Steve. And I know on behalf of everyone listening, we're so grateful for you, the work you do, and the blessings that you shower on everyone you touch. And fortunately, that reach has gotten a little bit bigger today. I want to let you know where you can find Steve. And he has 2 different websites you can visit. The first one is chiroman.com, which is chiroman.com. The second is chiromanvideos.com. So you can get even more tidbits from Steve there. And we actually have a combined gift for all of you listening, and that is free access to my Life Reboot course. This is only for a limited time, but this is a 30-day program that will really help you revitalize and heal yourself, mind, body, emotions, and spirit. And in the bonuses, you get like an hour-long conversation between Steve and I going even deeper into this stuff. So you can claim that at michellecourses.com. Once again, that's michellecourses.com. And Steve, I'm going to be seeing you next week, but thank you so much again for giving us your time, and we will be talking to you soon.
Thank you, Michelle. My pleasure. And you're truly a gift. And I can say firsthand, I've seen such great transformation. And so truly, the real gift of my work is when I'm able to see people actually take it on, make the change, and see the change. And I've seen so many amazing changes over the course of the last several years working with you, and it's just been a great blessing for me. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Steve, for helping me and being my assist to get out of my pain patterns so that we can both step forward and help other ladypreneurs all over the world. So thank you so much for listening today, everyone, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening in today to the Visibility Vixen podcast. Subscribe now and share with a fellow Vixen who wants to start building their visibility. For more fire in your life and brand, visit visibilityvixen.com.